generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about a movie that I am very excited to have seen and get to talk to all of you about it. I will say that the movie was kind of shocking in many different ways. Some kind of good, some kind of bad, and of course, we're going to let you know all about that here while we do our movie review. So, we're going to start it off with non-spoiler reactions to the movie. Then we're going to give it a rating, and then we're going to talk about the movie in finer detail. And I'm just going to say, I love the original Lion King. I love the original Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. Um, I'm in between on the 1.5 movie, the Pumbaa and Timon movie. And then I did like the live action film that's supposed to be along the same lines as this one. But I did not love that movie. So that kind of tells you where I'm at going into this. But at the same time, this idea that we're going to explore an area that we haven't on film uh, was exciting to me. So that's why I was super excited to go and see this movie and learn more about Mufasa. Now, going into my impressions of the film, uh, as I was watching the film, and I'll be able to elaborate on this more in the spoilers, but as I was watching the film, I thought that this movie was basically a derivative of the original. And what I mean by that, because uh, if you know calculus, derivative basically means you got something and then you change it, but it's reflective of what came before it. But
Highly inspired.
yeah, we'll call it that because there's this movie was almost predictable if you've seen the original. Like if you see a couple things and you're like, man, this is really like the original. Even some of the camera angles that they were using and the ways they were shooting things was like, oh, I've seen that in the original. Are they gonna do this then? And then you're like, oh my God, they did do this. Because I was sitting there in the theater as these things were happening. I was not only able to predict what was happening, but also starting to be like, this is like the exact same formula. So, um, but it is different in a way. But I would also say. This movie was a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. I was shocked to see how much killing was involved with the plot. Now, are we seeing lions and animals getting massacred like you might on like Animal Planet or something? No, we're not seeing like blood and guts or anything like that. But
And
there,
it says rated PG, just for reference.
wow, I'm actually a little surprised about that because there is one on screen where it's like there could have been some blood and stuff. There actually was some blood in this movie a little bit, if you think about it.
The
It's
only
not,
blood I really remember seeing with his was with scar in his eye,
yep,
which I'm sure is not a surprise to anybody that you're gonna find out how he got that scar.
right. I was actually going to say that. I was like, it's not really a spoiler, but um, yeah, but you actually see on screen something that's fairly violent, but there's a lot of the things that are off screen implied. And so, but then they do talk about, you know, wanting to kill and death and all of this quite a lot throughout the movie. So uh, I do applaud Disney for willing to take a risk with the plot, but it's really interesting to me because I feel like this was more of a film for adults than kids. It wasn't a very happy-go-lucky film. One thing I will say, because this isn't a spoiler, but it does have to do with the structure of the film. This is a prequel, right? And so the structure of the film is that, Simba and Nala have had a baby. Kiara, which matches with the original, like the animated version of The Lion King. And there's a big thunderstorm, and so she's hiding with Rafiki, Timon, and Pumbaa because they're babysitting her while Simba and the other lions go do something. And the whole movie is revolving around Rafiki telling the story of Mufasa to Kiara. That way she kind of knows a little bit about, you know, what her grandfather was like. And the structure of so it like starts off with that, but then it also interjects along the way with them popping back up. So, for instance, this is a prequel. So, in theory, we would not have Timon and Pumbaa in the main storyline, even though they were like a big comedic part of the original. So, this is kind of a way that they try to substitute that because since they're there with the storytelling with Rafiki, they get to do their own little comedic things here and there. I didn't actually like that format, just because I felt like it broke up different engaging parts of the film. But that also was happening with a lot of the music too. There were parts where I was like, okay, you just put a music number and broke up something a second ago. Don't you dare do it right here. And then boom, there was a music number, and I was like, dang. Um, I was shocked though. I did look up before we, started filming this. I looked up how many songs were in the film. Sarah, how many do you think are in the film that the characters sing?
I've
There's six. So you were close. I was kind of surprised how short the soundtrack is. The soundtrack is seven songs. Why? Because they put in the song that opens the movie. So like, with The Lion King, it's The Circle of Life. The new one that they have for this, that's on the soundtrack as well.
How many's in the original Lion King?
I think it was like four or five. I thought that was shocking when I went to look that up.
That doesn't sound like very many.
No. Uh, Oh, another reason why I looked up the music for this film is because I didn't remember a sing there. I had no guess for what any of the songs were called. I had no guess for remembering anything about them, except for a couple of things that really made me think about the parallels to the original film.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, one of them's in the trailer. I always wanted a brother. Like that's in the trailer.
oh, I didn't remember that, quite honestly. The only song I remember from the trailer is when they cut to like the end of the trailer and it's like Circle of Life, boom, in your face. Um,
I guess it's not the full-on song in the trailer, but it is Taka saying that in like a singing type way. It's more like a single line he says in his song, but it's in the trailer. Like they give you enough of a hint in the trailer, like, hey, this is gonna be one of the songs.
well, that actually is the name of the song. I always wanted a brother. I've been talking way too much. Sarah, what did you think of the film? Oh, I didn't say what I actually thought of it. I'm sorry. Um, I thought the movie was all right. Like I said, I applaud them for taking risks, but there was a lot of things in this film that didn't really work. As far like the filming, the way it looked at times was very messy. That was actually something I applauded the original for, was that on screen it was absolutely stunning that they were able to do this all with computers. And so when we get to this one, there's a lot of scenes that are very, very muddy. Like, ugh. Um, Almost as if it was like there wasn't enough detail in a lot of the stuff. It just looked very blurry. Um,
Well, that the first live action was 5 years ago, so if anything, it should be better
right, especially
by
since,
a fair amount. Because we're not 1 year later, we're 5 years later.
which is especially because Disney is working with, the one movie that is really pushing technology, Avatar. So they should be able to, at least be consistent. And also, like when I watch other movies, like when I watch Craven, I was like, these animals look awful because The Lion King made it look so phenomenal. Yeah, I can't say that about this one, at least not for the entirety of the film. Okay, I thought it was all right. Sarah, take it away.
I'm in the same boat where I thought it was a pretty okay movie, and that even might be saying a little bit much for me. Uh, So taking it piece by piece, the animals I thought looked okay. I wasn't really upset with how they looked, aside from them being very muted in color. But you should kind of see that coming because the first Lion King live action, they made them very muted in color. I understand in real life that's what they look like, but it's the same complaint I had with The Little Mermaid is that's a movie full of color. The original Lion King is a movie full of color, and now these live actions, they just look so muted and boring.
That's because
Um,
that's how the world is. It's muted and boring.
but that's not why you watch a movie. You watch a movie for like fantasy, right? Or at least for these types of movies, it's for fantasy. It should look very vibrant for at least some of the time. Think of like the original Lion King and how they took away the color whenever they would focus on Scar because it's dark and grim and dirty and whatever. I don't feel like we really got that with this film. I don't mean with Scar specifically. I just mean like in general, the whole thing was muted. So there wasn't really a contrast to show whenever the villains were on, except for the colors of like the lions themselves being a little bit different. Um, what I had a bigger issue with the animation is there's a lot of scenes that were very close up, like super in your face. I'm talking like this, which is okay from time to time, but I feel like we did it a lot. And on top of that, we had a lot of very high speed moving shots, which would make sense because, lions chasing or stampedes or whatever, those types of things that you expect from this kind of movie. But like it almost seemed like a blur. Like it didn't my eyes couldn't process the images to be a clear shot. And I think that really is on the animation that you were talking about of, it looked really good in the first one. Here we are 5 years later. It should at least look as crisp as that one, if not better. And I don't feel like we really got that. Um, there was a lot of really weird scene transitions too, especially towards the beginning where we'd be transitioning from one type of shot to another, and they'd have the two kind of like overlapped on each other, which is a typical thing you see from time to time. But I feel like they had the overlay of the two shots on for too long. So it's like you were seeing two different shots at the same time, and it was just like confusing. I don't know. It was just unusual, I think is probably the best way to put it.
So one thing that I can maybe it's a testament to, the not so great animation. The f original one that they did, what the budget was 60 million more than this one.
Holy smokes, that's a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean,
60
granted,
million more than uh, like is it like 10 to 70 million or is it like
so
100
this
to 160? You know what I mean?
so this one had 200 million roughly for its budget.
Okay.
The first one was 260. Now, granted,
So that's like a what is that like a 20% increase or
uh
25% increase? Excuse me.
isn't that 30?
Like approximate,
Yeah,
I'm rounding here.
30%
Doing math
increase.
in my head.
30%. The
So I
original
mean
had 30% more money than this one.
that's quite a big difference.
Yeah. Well, that I was going to say, this one didn't have James Earl Jones, which is actually one of the things that so it kind
The
of
movie,
bugs me.
before you get into that, the movie lengths are almost identical. They're both 2-hour movies, like within 2 minutes of each other in terms of runtime.
Yeah. So you would think, you would get. And I feel like in this movie, they use a lot of the same regions. So there's not, like, I feel like they put a lot of detail, all in the one area. I don't know. But one of the things I thought was not so great, and maybe I'm just, I don't know. Mufasa, they actually put in the movie a in loving memory of James Earl Jones, and it has like a line from Mufasa that may or may not have been James Earl Jones. I would assume it's his voice because it was in remembrance. But when Mufasa becomes an adult in this film, I feel like what they should have done, because the I looked at the guy that was the voice actor for Mufasa, Aaron Pierre, and I looked at his credentials, and what I was looking for was, has he been a voice actor for Darth Vader for any Star Wars projects and like video games or something? He's never touched that. And I was thinking, I feel like he would rather have somebody that has already emulated James Earl Jones's voice to play the role if it's not James Earl Jones. Now, I know he passed away. He couldn't have been in this movie, but this is a younger Mufasa. It should sound a little different than when he's a full-grown adult. So I feel like those voice actors that have played Vader in the past might have been a better choice here just to make it sound a little bit closer to James Earl Jones, because I felt like this guy did not sound like him one bit.
Well, let me ask you this. When have you ever known Scar to sound British? Because that's in the trailer too.
Uh,
That young Scar is British.
in the other live action,
Is he really?
pretty sure. He almost sounds like French or something.
I guess I don't recall that. And maybe it is that I'm mixing up my accents here, but I guess I don't recall that. I keep thinking back to the cartoon original, and I know you can't have not supposed to be a direct copy because then it'd be boring and it'd be too nitpicky, but at the same time, that's what I have to base it on. So I guess moving on from, animation and colors and whatnot and thinking more about the story and the songs. The songs were okay. I don't think any of them were big hits. Like, when we saw Moana 2 and there was a couple songs that was like, oh, these are pretty catchy. Like these might actually catch on with the kids and stuff. I don't see that with this film. They were okay, but they weren't really anything catchy or something that I would like want to sing for fun.
I will
Um,
say I was tapping my toe to which one was it? To the We Go Together. I was tapping my toe to that one. That's when they're going through the gorge.
yep.
Not a spoiler. And the other one that I thought was at least a good attempt at a decent song was the love song that they had, because I thought it sounded a little different. To a point, it almost sounded a little out of place based on the style, but um, again, taking risks, I thought that that was at least interesting.
Damn. From a story perspective, I honestly feel like it was kind of boring. And I don't mean the whole movie was boring, but I mean like there's some interesting parts sprinkled throughout, but it's 2 hours with maybe 30 to 45 minutes of interesting content. And I feel like the rest is just filler. Between going to Timon and Pumbaa, which although I thought they were funny and cute, they seemed kind of out of place, and it just reminded me a lot of Lion King 1.5, which I haven't seen in a very long time. So I'm not going to say it's like a direct correlation or anything to that. I just remember that was them kind of trying to tell a side story, and that's how this one kind of felt to me a little bit. Um, but a lot of the movie is their journey from one place to another for reasons I'm not going to say because of spoilers, but that journey is so long with not a whole lot of interesting events that could, I mean, I wish there was either more drama or maybe more like love interest type stuff or more
I would
side
say
characters maybe. I don't know. I just feel like it was lacking. It's just an overall sense of lacking.
the film had that stuff, I would say, but my problem with it is that, again, it's predictable. Like there's things that should be somewhat plot twisty that we already could tell was gonna happen. Um,
I
There's
would agree that it had those things, but what I was trying to say is that it's a 2 hour movie and only like 30 to 45 minutes of it is actually interesting content of that type of stuff. There's at least an hour of just filler, in my
And
opinion.
I will say, there are movies where literally we are walking from one place to another, and that movie's interesting, like Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of walking in that movie, but it's very interesting. So, um, but yeah, like there's different things that you could piece together from prior knowledge where it's like, well, this has to happen, and then it just isn't a very interesting way for it to happen. Maybe it's because it's supposed to be a children's movie, so they just made it simple. But I don't know.
Even Scar getting his name Scar, because you know from the trailer that they call him Taka, and but we know from the regular Lion Kings that he somehow, for whatever reason, is called Scar because of his scar. But the name transition, that was so weak for me. It was not my favorite.
At
But
least that. So I just looked it up. At least there. So before this movie was made, there were books that kind of explored this time frame,
okay.
and they actually did keep his name to be the right name. Because I looked it up and it said that his name was Taka. So that's kind of cool. They paid attention to some details, and I think towards the end of the movie, I think they broke canon a little bit, but we'll talk about that later. But
I think
uh,
Rafiki's backstory was pretty neat because we do explore that too. Um,
I thought it was all right, I guess.
it was something to pay attention to in the middle of doing nothing.
All right. Well, we've been talking for over 20 minutes about our non-spoilers, so let's go ahead and give it a rating, and then we can just talk about some more detail because I think that's where the fun is going to begin. So, well, more fun, I should say. Let's see. I There were times during the movie where I was feeling like a seven, but with all the things that, I've like digested about this film and, realizing that this is heavily inspired with the formula from the original, um, and then the issues with the blurriness on the screen quite a few times, I think that I'm comfortable at a six. I think it's slightly above average, but not by much. What do you think?
I'm at a 4. I feel like it's a below average film. I feel like I have the urge to rate it higher just because it's Disney and just because it's The Lion King and that has a place in your heart and whatnot. And,
Maybe that's
just
why I made
because
it a
it
six.
and just because it is a live action of like animals and stuff, and some of the shots are really cool. But I feel like if I take my heart aside and I just look at the film itself, I was bored a lot. And to me, it's a below average film. So I'm at a 4.
One of the things I did contemplate was, if I didn't know what the original was, what would I kind of think of this film? And I think I'd still be around a six just because of all the negative things I saw with it. But I don't believe as much as you do about the plot being, dull. I mean, because like I said, it surprised me what they were willing to put in this film. And so I think because they're taking those risks, I think it's kind of worth giving credit there. But so spoilers. Let's get into it. So, like I said earlier, the movie starts off with where the first movie ended. Uh, you know, uh, Kiara was born. There's a thunderstorm. She listens to the story of her grandfather from Rafiki. And then that's how we get to learning about Mufasa. Now, Mufasa and his parents, they are basically trying to find this location called, I got it here.
Malele.
Malele, thank you. I had just seen it. And what Malele is it's essentially Pride Rock. Right now, it's not Pride Rock, and we'll get there, but
It's kind of like
Essentially,
the promised land. Like it's the land where everything looks amazing, and right now you're living in a desert.
yeah, which actually reminds me a lot of the movie Dinosaur from Disney because that's what that plot was. After, the meteor hit Earth, the dinosaurs basically were in a desert and they were looking for this oasis essentially of just amazingness. And that's kind of what we got here. But, they're trying to get there. I found it interesting because as they're traveling, it starts to rain and it hits Mufasa on the nose, and he is like, "What is this?" And they say it's rain. And then, like a little while later, he knows what a flood is, but he didn't know what rain was. And so I was like, "How do you know this stuff, kid?" It seems kind of backwards. But when the rain starts, eventually what happens is that they're traveling along, and a flood comes. And this is very, very similar to the original, right? Because Mufasa, he is like in the middle of a rock, like a bunch of animals go in this little, I would say, empty pool is what it looked like. And water starts pouring in there from the flood. Simba gets up on a rock so he can be above the water. And even though some of the other animals are just fine, because it's like, I don't know, knee deep for them, but for him, it was a lot of water. But as the flood keeps coming, more and more water's pouring in. He's getting scared. His father wants to go in and, save him, which is just like Simba and the Gorge with the wildebeests. And so he put, or Mufasa's dad, gets him to a spot where he can run off and, get to safety. But unfortunately, his dad is not able to get out of the water. And so an elephant is coming down the river and just blows open basically this dam that was holding the water back. And that's how Mufasa's dad gets swept away. And uh
And Mufasa does too.
yeah, he does too, because the he was like on his way to safety, but he didn't want to jump like the last little piece of the dam, and so he went too. So Mufasa survived this. His dad did not. We learned that later on in the film, but it's like they went right for the punch right away with kind of like a Mufasa hangover or something where you get to feel that again. So that's the first
Well, I think
parallel.
at this time we think his because Mufasa and his mom were on the dam, and the dad
Mhm.
was in the water on his way to the dam. And so when the dam breaks, they're all essentially rushed in this flood water, flash flood. And so we kind of think they're all lost, right? We only focus on Mufasa. So at the beginning, kind of think both his parents are either lost or dead.
Right. And then we get more clarity towards the end, as which we find out that the dad is dead. Um, but the mom did survive at the end. So uh Mufasa is going down river and he's about to get eaten by crocodiles, which is just like how Simba was about to be eaten by vultures in the desert before Timon and Pumbaa come and save him. But here, his friend Taka comes in and helps him. Well, Taka and Taka's mom save Simba, or not Simba, Mufasa. Sorry, save Mufasa from the crocodiles. He's known as a stray, an orphan, and when they go back to basically Taka's pride, his Taka's dad is like, normally we eat strays. They're not good for the group. Even he might even grow bigger than us and then kill us all. So we need to take care of him. But um, the mom doesn't want him to. She's like, don't worry about it. And so they're kind of all together here. That's where we get the sequence of Taka doing his little song about wanting a brother, which is very similar to I Can't Wait to Be King. Even the first line is talking about being a king. And as they're going through when they're singing the song and they're going around the different areas, it's very much like I Can't Wait to Be King, or how they're interacting with all these different animals. So they get through that, and during this sequence is how they grow up. Like they do their song, and then bam, they're adults. They do like a quick camera change thing, and then they become adults. So while they're adults, we find out that Mufasa has been hanging with the lionesses of the group. The dad does not want Mufasa to be with the males. He said, if you're going to be here, you're going to hang out with the females and you're going to learn to hunt and do things with them. So as they go out to do a hunt one day, they find out that they're actually being hunted by other lions. Scar is not sup or not Taka. Taka is not supposed to go with them. His dad does not want him to go on the hunts, but he decides to go anyways because he's kind of seeing that Simba is getting or Mufasa. I'm gonna do that this whole time. Mufasa is getting all of these like really good, uh, I would say like compliment type thing. Like he's getting a lot of responsibilities that a king might, have some big responsibilities later on. And I think he's getting kind of jealous at that. One of the things his dad tells him though is one of these days that dude is going to betray you. It's okay to be deceitful as a leader and basically filling Scar slash Tika,
Taka.
Taika, his
Taka.
Taka, sorry, filling his head with all of these things that really aren't good. Um, but yeah, he follows them out, and they get ambushed by these other lions, which are the ones that look like they have like the snowy looking fur, the white ones. They get a little entanglement, and when Mufasa is trying to save one of the lionesses, he like bumps one of the other lions, and like there's a tree that's down and there's a limb that's sticking out. That lion goes up on the limb and gets pierced. So this is where I was like, in the non-spoiler, they could have had blood, but they didn't because they didn't like pierce all the way through his body. But that's how we actually see that on-screen death.
Yeah, I missed that somehow. Like I remember seeing the fight, but they talk later about like, oh, you killed my son or daughter, whoever, but I'm just like, they did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, we're gonna see that in this film. Okay. So then, you know, um, Mufasa and them go back to their group because they're like, we gotta tell them because these dudes are gonna be on our tail any minute. And then the one lion that survived this fight went back to his group, and the way that this dude is dealt with, he goes back, he's like, yo, um, we got ambush. He died. And so the leader of the group with the white lions, he's like, my son died? Why aren't you dead? Like, clearly you let it happen. And his answer to this was basically, my son died. You didn't do enough. You lose your life too. And he had his group kill him. And so I was like, oh, we're doing this. So there's a lot that this is what we were talking about. This is a much darker film. There's a lot of violence and death involved. And um, this was right from the get-go. I'd say within the first 25 to 30 minutes. Let's see. Did you want to cover anything? I'm just riffing off this movie.
Um, I was actually sidetracked. I was looking up, you were talking about breaking canon from the cartoons and whatnot, and so I was looking up the actual origins of these characters and whatnot. So, if you want to keep going, go for it. If not, I'll try to pick up the
All right,
pieces.
I'll keep going. So Mufasa and I'm just gonna call him Scar. I'm just gonna stick with it. So Mufasa, Scar, and the lioness get back to their group and tell them what's going on.
And when you say lioness, it's Scar's mom.
Oh, Scar's mom. Sorry. Do we know her name?
Um, I don't.
I
I
wasn't
can't.
trying to
But
take anything away that it was a female lion.
Scar's mom.
Was as she's
Found her name in the cartoons, but Eshe or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Eshe? Okay, well, she's not in the movie much longer, so it'll be all right. Um, not to be morbid, but so they all get back to the group, and the dad is basically saying like, if we want our bloodline to survive, we need Scar and Mufasa to leave, and then we'll try to handle the group. We'll delay them as you're trying to get away. So they do that. Mufasa and Scar take off, and the bad guys show up. They surround the group, and I did not like this. I thought this was really dumb. When they get there, and the big baddie, instead of having like this very creepy monologue of like, you know you're gonna die, and I'm just telling you how bad you're gonna die, he breaks out into song. It's like Scar's moment in the original with Be Prepared in a way, but it was him singing to the group of just how, like, trying to be
Say bye
evil.
bye.
That's the name of the song. It's Bye Bye. And I just thought it was a poor placement. I thought this is one that really broke the tension because I don't want to watch someone break out in a song when I know what's about to happen. Because what does happen is they slaughter the whole tribe. We don't see
Yeah.
it on film, but we do hear the cries of the lions.
I thought the breaking into song was an okay spot for it. I just didn't think the song was nearly I didn't think it was very powerful. It should have been a lot more powerful of a song.
Which is actually my same critique of the live action version of Be Prepared. Like the original Be Prepared is like a 10, whereas the other one was like a 6. So, and then this brought it down to even like a 4 because I thought it was misplaced. I thought it was pointless. And at that point, I was disengaged and not even listening to him hardly at all because I wanted to get over with. I wanted to move to the next thing. Um, so yeah, he has like a sinister grin on his face, and then we cut to Mufasa and Scar running away, and we hear the roars and the cries of Scar's family. So that kind of tells us as the audience they were slaughtered. So then Scar and Mufasa try to keep on going. They get to, was it a river, I think? And Mufasa doesn't want to jump through it because, he knows what happened before. They get cornered and they see like an antelope jump across the rock part, just, basically playing hopscotch across the river. And so basically, this is the part in the trailer where the two of them just jump off the waterfall. And then they're down there in the water. They're holding onto a branch and they're like, that was awesome. We're gonna be okay. And then they see the other lion jump behind them from the other group because they're running after him. And then there's crocodiles in the water. So, uh, you know, Mufasa and Scar, they got to get going. Somewhere in here is where we finally learn about Rafiki's backstory. All I really remember about it is that he was different from his group. They thought he was kind of deranged because he talked to the moon and stuff. And so they banished him basically. They were like, we're not comfortable with you being here. You got to go. And so he leaves his group. Um, I right around this time I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So I have a question for you, Sarah. Was the rest of the group like him as far as like his species? Because the one that was talking to him was not. At least they didn't look like it.
Are you asking, did they all look like the same type of monkey?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so, but I don't 100% remember.
The reason
They
why
all looked somewhat similar. I couldn't tell you if they all had his exact markings.
the reason why I ask is because not only in this film, because the Scar's dad, he's saying this idea of if they're different from us, then they're a threat. That's also in one of the songs in Lion King 2, because they say like, I forget the exact line, but uh, he's not one of us because he doesn't look like us. And so I kind of wondered if that had to play a role in Rafiki being banished too, if he just looked different than all the other monkeys, but I don't know. I could be wrong. So Rafiki goes off on his own, eventually bumps into Mufasa and Scar, and when he should look like he's scared of them, he's not. Like he just like goes right up in their face and is like, "What's up?" kind of a thing, and then he just kind of keeps going, and then they become a group, which then eventually they run into another lion, a lioness, and a bird, which is Zazu and um, Sarabi.
Yep.
And I know that because that would see, this was a part where I was like, it's going to be predictable because we know this from the original. When I was sitting there watching this movie, I was like, man, what was the name of Mufasa's wife? And I was like, oh, it's Sarabi. And then this lioness appeared on screen, Sarabi. But as our lion group is going together to try to find this oasis, Pride Rock, we find out that Scar has a little crush on her, on Sarabi. And so, knowing that he doesn't end up with her, we can predict that something's going to happen where she ends up with Mufasa instead. So, Mufasa is actually like coaching Scar how to, woo her a little bit, try to be more interested in her and see if she ends up liking him in return. He's super awkward. He's very weird. But what ends up making this whole plot line uh, derail is eventually the bad lions catch up to them, and our heroes cross this big gorge area. My guess is this might be the same gorge as the one where Mufasa dies later. I don't know, but they cross the gorge. They notice that there's elephants. And Sarabi gets this idea where if she knocks down this thing of this bee's nest, it'll make the elephants go crazy and it'll disrupt the other lions from getting to them. Which is actually interesting because Mufasa wanted to be more like diplomatic about it and just be like, yo, elephants, can you help us? Those dudes are trying to kill us. But that doesn't work because the elephants didn't give a rip. So they knock down the bee's nest, which does make the elephants go nuts. A good handful of the other lions are killed. Some of them are just turned off from, wanting to chase our heroes. Eventually, was it didn't an elephant like knock a tree over or something, and that's how Rafiki got his staff?
Something like that. I'm not entirely sure. And to me, it looked like he just found a stick on the ground.
Oh, well, he gets his staff here. They're able to get away, and they head towards the mountains, which has a bunch of snow and stuff. Which Mufasa was smart here. He said to Zazu, hey, they're gonna track us if we don't cover our tracks. So can you do something about it? Zazu's like pushing the snow off other parts of the mountain to cover it up. Smart idea. But during their time on the mountain is where uh, Sarabi finds so when they had the issue with like the scuffle with the elephants and stuff, Sarabi got knocked out at that point, and she was saved by Mufasa. And she didn't quite know who saved her, but he had said something like it'll be all right, blah blah blah.
I
And
got you.
oh, I got you. And she remembers what it sounded like. So later on, she asks, who was the one that saved me? And because Mufasa knows that Scar wants a little bit of an in with Sarabi, he says, oh, it was Scar, or his real name. He doesn't actually say Scar. And so later on in the film, Mufasa says, I got you to Rafiki, meaning like you can ride on my shoulders as we go. And Sarabi makes this connection of, that sounds a lot like what I heard. And so she puts together that it was actually Mufasa that saved her. And this cues up the love song that they, basically run around together. And Scar is seeing all of this, which really upsets him. So he decides, well, I'm gonna go. Well, he remembers from his father saying that it's okay for kings to be deceitful. So this triggers him to go find those other lions and being like, you know what? Forget about Mufasa. Forget about Sarabi. They don't care about me. Which I do think the film does a decent job of trying to make us feel bad for Scar because he's very much he wants to be the person that everybody wants him to be, a potential king someday. But he's a very shy individual. Like, even when he could have been a hero during the different parts of the film, he shies away and lets other people take care of things. So, like, when the elephant thing happened, he could have saved Sarabi, but he stayed back and let Mufasa take care of it. But so he kind of digs his own grave with all this stuff. But he eventually realizes, like, you know what? People don't respect me. I'm not going to get what I think what he promised or what he wants. And so he decides to go to those other lines and says, hey, I'm gonna tell you where they're at and I'll join you. So he, as the our heroes are going, towards the Pride Rock area, Scar is putting these claw marks in the rocks as they go, so the other group knows where they're going. So follow them. Which eventually we all get to the Pride Rock area, and the lions catch up to the bad lions catch up to our group. Mufasa and the group is trying to, well, aside from Scar, they're all trying to convince the other animals because there's a huge diverse group of animals here. Giraffes, zebras, antelopes. They're all here in this like harmony, and they're like, "Hey,
In
we
the Malele, right?
right." He says, we need your help. These dudes have been chasing us. And the giraffe actually says back to him, we know they're here for you. You're here causing trouble. We don't want anything to do with it. And Mufasa, very smart, says, they may be here for us today. They could come back for you tomorrow. So if you help us take care of them now, we can make sure that they never come back, which is great. And they band together to fight off these lions, which does, in my opinion, eventually create like a pretty semi uh cool. It's not as great as I wanted it to be, but there's the fight between the leader of the bad guys and Mufasa happens in Pride Rock, like in the rock. And what we see here is that it's not the actual Pride Rock that we see normally, because as they're fighting, this rock has some like destructive things that happen, like destructive environment. Like the rock breaks, falls down, and then falls down. So like, we know Pride Rock to look kind of like this in a way, where Simba is over, or yeah, Mufasa, Simba, all of them go over here to address everybody. Well, what happens is that during the destruction, it like comes down and then creates the little walkway that they can go on. So I thought that was kind of cool that they even gave like an origin story to Pride Rock.
Yeah, I thought that was neat.
But they're duking it out, and the way that Mufasa ends up killing the guy is that they fall into this big pool of water, which I think it's kind of cool that the way that they finish off Mufasa being super brave in this film is that he battles this thing that scared him and traumatized him as a kid. He did not like water. I thought that was kind of cool. It's a good way to connect it. But as this environment is breaking apart, a huge rock comes down, and as they're fighting in the water, it hits the bad guy and pushes him all the way down. Mufasa's able to get out of the way. He goes up, and he's right about to get up there, and he is trying to get up, and it's like a mirroring of when Scar grabs his hands, in the original before he throws them to the wildebeests. But here he actually pulls them up. So there, like I said, there's a lot of parallels to the original. This one I thought it was good though. It was a good way to make it a little different. So the bad guys are defeated. and this is where Mufasa realizes that his mom is actually alive. He also has to deal with Scar. During the fight, the bad guy gave Scar his actual scar, cut his eye, and
So he finally
Mufasa,
was brave and stood up for Mufasa.
right. And Mufasa says, in relation to having to deal with his brother, he says, my brother is always going to have a spot here because they wanted, the other animals wanted Scar to be banished for what he did. But he says, no, there's going to be a place here for my brother, but I cannot call my brother by his name. Like his name is tainted, basically. And so Sarah's favorite thing from the film, which is sarcasm, Scar is like, well, just call me by my appearance. Call me Scar. I thought it was okay because we had to make some sort of connection here. They didn't call him, Taka in the original, so we had to make this transition. So that's what we got. And then we live in harmony, right? Everything's great. Now Mufasa is the leader of Pride Rock. We cut back to present day when Simba and Nala are coming back to retrieve Kiara, from Rafiki after what they've gone off and done their thing. And what we find out that what their thing was is that basically Nala had another baby. So Kiara has a brother now. I think this is the canon that's broken because she did not have a brother in Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. At least not at this age. I don't think she had a brother at the end of the film. I think it was maybe her and Kovu had a child, but uh, it makes me wonder, like, are they planning to make another one that takes place after the original and they have, Yara and her brother doing mischievous things? Um, and will it follow what the original number two was? I love the second movie, so I kind of hope it does, but something tells me they won't.
What do you remember the son's name being?
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
remember.
This is what I've been trying to figure out is how this family tree stuff works. First of all, I'm gonna say this this whole storyline of them not actually being brothers, right off the bat, that breaks canon because
Hmm.
um from what I've found from Lion King Guard, did I say that right? Or from Lion King slash Lion Guard fandom.com. So I don't know how reliable it is. I looked at a lot of different sources. Simba's kids is one that's not super clear to me because there's obviously Kiara, right?
Hmm.
But it sounds like he's got two sons, one being Kion and one being Copa. I don't really know which is which or which one's real. Some sources say it's just Kion, some say it's both, so I can't really say for sure that part. But every source is saying that Uru is Mufasa and Scar's mom. Like that they are actual legit brothers, and Mufasa is older, so that's why he became king. But heir to the king was going to be Scar until Simba was born. So because Mufasa had a son, that means the son is next in line and not Scar anymore, which makes sense from the original Lion King.
Do you think they avoided that because they didn't want the movie to be super political?
They very well could be.
I
I
think I
don't
would
know
have
where
liked
this
that better.
story came from. Maybe the story came from books or something, and Disney rewrote the canon of the characters and stuff. I'm not entirely sure why they just abolished, because even the name Uru wasn't used in this movie at all for either of the moms. Um, at least not that I recall seeing. Same with the dad's name Ahadi, like Ahadi. Um, So yeah, I can't really speak to the reasons why they did things different, but what I can say is that it's different.
Yeah, I don't think that's his dad's name because I'm pretty sure it's Masego.
Oh,
Um,
it could be.
because
Yeah.
the voice, when I heard his voice, I was like, oh, I know that voice actor, and it's confirmed on here, Keith David.
What do you know him from?
He was in Delta Farce, Larry the Cable Guy movie. I believe he's also been a voice um, for some of the Call of Duty games, like a general.
Gotcha.
Let's see, what are his other big movies? He's in They Live. I know you know that movie. He
Okay.
was Dr.
Yep.
Facilier.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. He's a very popular actor. If you saw him, you would know who he is.
Cool.
So, I guess going back to what you're talking about with the lore, I really don't like that. I really don't like that they're breaking it. Like, I was really hoping what we were gonna get was the established lore, and then we were gonna get a film of it. So that's kind of heartbreaking.
I mean, I guess it's established now.
What do you mean?
Like this is the canon going forward.
Yeah, but it made me wonder, is that why they decided him to just be an orphan, and so they didn't have to talk about all that stuff? Hmm.
Um, so I Googled why is Uru not in this movie, and the AI overview is that they're not Uru is not featured prominently in Mufasa the Lion King because the prequel film focuses more on the backstory of Mufasa and Scar, likely introducing new characters for their parents rather than directly including Uru and Ahadi, who were already established as the original parents of Mufasa in the Lion King narrative.
I'm just gonna say
So
that's
this
stupid.
this allows for a fresh story within the same universe.
Nope, that's a bad, bad move. Bad move. Bad Disney. Um, I was gonna say, oh, I
I'm
was gonna ask.
I'm
So,
on the same page as you, just for the record. I don't like having to change things up just for the heck of it.
so in the original Lion King, this is where I think some of the wires are gonna get crossed. Of doesn't make sense. In the original movie, Scar wants to be king. He doesn't like the fact that Simba, you know, would be king because he's the son of Mufasa. So if Simba wasn't there and Mufasa died, Scar would take up the mantle, right?
Correct.
So what makes me think here in this live action lore is, would that really work? Because there wasn't a king in the first place. It was kind of like um George Washington with the United States. They were like, dude, you like saved us in the Revolutionary War. We want you to be the president because you're amazing. So this is kind of like what happened here with Mufasa, where he really didn't want to be the ruler, but because all of them respected him and stuff, they made him the king. So no way, shape, or form do I see where that drama would unfold in this universe. Because if Mufasa died, there's no way any of these lion or animals would listen to Scar. No way.
Oh, you're saying using this storyline as a prequel for even the other live action one and why Scar would think he deserves to be king if Mufasa dies?
Right.
Yeah,
I feel like this movie breaks that drama. That doesn't make any sense.
I would agree.
Now, if Mufasa was if he was the like you said, the oldest son of a king that was already here, and then Scar was a brother, I could see that happening. But
Which
that's
is the original lore, is
right.
that.
Which is why I'm saying they should have done the original lore for a film because it makes sense. Here it makes no sense. Dang. Okay, you still got that Google sheet pulled up of the ratings?
I can find it very quickly. Yeah, what's up? Is this gonna affect your rating?
I'm matching you. I'm going down to a 4.
You're going from a 6 to a 4?
I don't like that. The more that we unpack this, it doesn't make sense.
And let me be clear, it's not just because you're upset that they broke canon. It's that it affects the movie that this one is supposed to be a prequel to and makes that one not make sense anymore. And
Correct.
that's the issue.
Correct. What I'm saying about as far as the original lore is that if they had done that, it would have made this make more sense in relation to the other one. Whereas they decided to do this new product, which if the other one didn't exist, sure, fine with this story. But because the other one exists, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Dang.
I would have to agree. Even if you think about like, well, this is the live action, that was the cartoon, but the other live action had the same storyline of Scar wanting Mufasa gone so he could be king.
Yeah,
And
because that's the whole
Simba
reason
ruining that.
why that's the whole reason why he took over is because he had Mufasa killed and he told Simba to run away. And so he told the group, hey, they're both dead. I'm the next one in line. I have to take care of the pride.
Yeah.
Mm, I don't like it. One thing the probably the last thing I want to mention here, just because I've already talked about all the different like parallels that happen in this movie. They like I said, his dad died right away. There was a stampede at one point. Um, we had the exact order of the songs, really, too. Maybe Be Prepared was before Hakuna Matata, I suppose, but we basically had the same type of songs here in this movie, where we had, something that's kind of like Can't Wait to Be King. We had something similar to Hakuna Matata. We had something similar to Be Prepared. They actually even used the exact same songs for like late at the end of the movie when Mufasa walks up Pride Rock. It's the same song as the original. It's Remember. Um, if I could throw a compliment to try to end this, one thing I thought was kind of cool was that they were trying to parallel present day to past, and Kiara walked up the Pride Rock and pretended to be roaring just like her ancestors and her dad. I thought that was kind of cool.
And seeing them in the clouds.
Yeah. Another thing I thought was cool that has nothing to do with the movie. You know, in the very beginning when we see the Disney castle and we know it's a Disney movie because of that. If you look to the right, they had Pride Rock.
Ooh,
And
that would have been neat to see. I missed that.
if you look to the left, I could be wrong, but either it's the snowy mountains from the movie or it looked a lot like Mission Everest
Hmm.
from Disney World. So I thought that was kind of a cool touch. What I thought was going to happen was, and this didn't happen. If you remember the live action Beauty and the Beast, when they did that thing and they said, Walt Disney Pictures or whatever, that was the castle that they jump into the movie. So it does the logo and then it zooms into the castle and then we engage with the story. I thought that was going to happen here where we see Walt Disney and then it like zooms over to Pride Rock, but that didn't happen. But I don't know, small things you pick up on. Anything
Yeah, that's pretty
else?
neat.
Anything else you want to say about The Lion King, Mufasa?
I I think that wraps it up.
All right. We both settled at fours. Uh, Dang. That's all I can say. I was very excited for this film, and the more I thought about it, the more I didn't like it. But oh well.
Yeah, I thought we had waited enough time since the last one to be able to build a good story, but it wasn't what I was hoping for.
It makes me wonder how long it takes to make the visuals, because like maybe they spent little time on the script and then spent 4 years or whatever it is to, make the CGI. But well, if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There is a movie coming out next week that I'm very, very, well, this week, I should say, that I'm very excited to go see and talk to all of you, which is Nosferatu. So if you subscribe to the channel, you will be notified when that one drops. Drops a like if you like the video and drops a comment letting us know your thoughts on Mufasa, the Lion King. Do you think we're justified with our thoughts, or did you think it was way better than what we thought? And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.